This lecture explains variables and hypotheses. A variable is a characteristic to which numbers or values may be assigned, like source credibility or communication satisfaction. In this course, your project will consider at least two variables, both of which must vary. The scope of your study is fixed, so it is not a variable. Variables must be either measured by a tally, an index, or by assignment to category. A tally would be counting the number of times someone sends or receives communication. An index would be a range of values from low to high on some measurable quality. Categories are always plural, and numerical assignment is arbitrary. Input variables are called independent variables. Many of them are relatively fixed, measurable attributes that differentiate some people from other people. Gender and age are always independent of other variables. Another word for independent variable is predictor variable. Gender and age can predict other variables. The other kind of variables, dependent variables, are influenced by other variables. In an experiment, the independent or predictor variable is expected to have some effect on the outcome for the dependent variable, sometimes called a criterion variable. In a survey, dependent variables are associated in some relationship with independent variables, or exhibit a difference associated with a nominal group or category. Group differences and relationships can answer basic research questions like, do women talk more than men? A difference. Or is experience speaking related to less communication apprehension? A relationship. In complex studies, extra variables may influence the difference or relationship between two variables. You can measure them in a survey as moderating variables or experimentally hold them constant as control variables. In this course, you are not expected to demonstrate competence with more than a few variables. Keep it simple for now. Variables must be explicitly stated within either a directional hypothesis, women speak more than men, or a less certain research question, which is merely a hypothesis converted into a non-directional question. Do men and women differ by amount of speaking? Sometimes vague about which independent variables exert the most influence. What characteristics predict individual differences in the amount of speaking? Your decision to use a research question instead of a hypothesis should be guided by previous research studies. The more studies you find dealing with the same variables that you plan to examine, the more likely a hypothesis is justified. But there's no shame in using a research question. Statistics are used to test your hypothesis or research question. ANOVA and t-test measure group differences. Correlations measure relationships. Chi-square tests are used to predict outcomes that are inherently categories, like, did you vote in the primary? The assumed difference or relationship is the null hypothesis. No difference, no relationship. The stated relationship or difference is the alternative hypothesis, which is the one you expect to demonstrate. By statistically rejecting the null hypothesis, you garner support, not proof, for the stated hypothesis. One study proves nothing, so be careful with your words. Support is a better word than prove.